Welcome gamers! This video will be a general overview of the artisanship system, and we'll be taking a look at some of the key features that help shape the artisan classes. 3 additional videos will be coming shortly where I will take a deeper look at each of the 3 artisan classes along with their individual professions. So without further ado,
here we go.
Artisanship will be home to 3 artisan classes: gathering, processing, and crafting. Gathering will have 5 professions, processing will have 9 professions, and crafting will have 8 professions, for a grand total of 22 artisan professions that players can participate in. Something to note is, unlike most MMOs, racial traits will not exist within Ashes of Creation, meaning if players choose to play a dwarf, they will not inherently be a master crafter. Instead, players will have the opportunity to choose from an array of backgrounds offered during character creation, which all backgrounds would be available to all races. Currently, the nuances of backgrounds are unknown, but they could provide benefits to certain artisan professions. Across all 22 total artisan professions, there will be 5 tiers of progression. For every 10 levels achieved in a profession, a player can advance to the next tier through a certification quest. Levels 0 through 10 start with novice proficiency. Levels 10 through 20 give apprenticeship. Levels 20 to 30 unlock journeyman status. Levels 30 to 40 are master tier, and levels 40 to 50 are grandmaster tier. Certification quests come from NPCs at profession relevant service buildings within a node, so players may need to travel to other nodes if the one they reside in does not have the service building required. There will be a limit on how many professions can be specialized in, starting at the apprentice tier. Players will only be able to achieve apprenticeship in 5 total professions. Journeyman will only allow 4 professions, Master will only allow 3 professions, and Grandmaster will only allow 2 professions. For every new tier a player reaches in their profession, they will be granted access to higher quality artisan equipment and access to higher quality resources or materials. Since there is a lockout on the number of professions that can be advanced, if you find yourself accidentally advancing a profession that you did not want to, don't worry, because in a Discord message from Steven Sharif, he confirmed that players will be able to change which professions that they master, but we do not know what that process will look like yet. Ashes of Creation want progressing through these professions to feel unique to a player's character development. So as players advance through professions, titles will be granted, special items may become accessible, service fees may be reduced, and unique artisan quests will be unlocked. Reaching Grandmaster in a profession will require a significant amount of time and resources. Steven Sharif also stated that people on your server should know who you are if you reach this level of artisan mastery. And this should hold true because, as mentioned, only 2 of those 22 starting artisan professions can ever reach that Grandmaster tier. So if somehow every player on a server evenly divides what professions to reach Grandmaster in, that would mean only 9% of a total server population could unlock the content behind a specific Grandmaster profession. And not everyone will want to sink time into progressing artisan professions either, so that would mean that 9% would actually be much lower. Each of the artisan professions will also have their own skill tree that players can allocate points to. Skill points will accrue as the players progress through their profession, but only the 2 professions players choose to become Grandmaster in will be able to have a fully maxed out skill tree. Some examples of skills we see in the gathering skill tree include increased gathering speed, increased yield, and an increased chance of finding higher tier resources. Unfortunately, we have not seen what the skill tree will look like for processing or crafting professions yet. There will be a respecking system if players do not like what they allocated their points to, but it will not be on the fly and will probably need to be done at an appropriate service building associated with some cost. Every profession will have 3 pieces of unique artisan gear, with the exception of gathering professions, which will have resource bags in addition to the standard 3 pieces of gear. We have only seen stats among the gatherer artisan gear, and they will provide benefits like increased gathering speed or increased yield. I imagine artisan gear for the processing professions will have increased yield as well, or reduced processing time. And crafting artisan gear, I speculate, may reduce crafting time or reduce the number of required resources to craft an item. Novice level equipment for all professions will be purchasable through vendors, while higher level equipment will need to be crafted by players. As I mentioned, resource bags will be essential to the Gathering Artisan class. These resource bags will operate under a spatial inventory, meaning that gathered resources will come with their own unique shape and may not fit into every type of bag. From the Artisanship livestream, we can see a general resource bag at the top, which I assume to be universal and will probably stack any type of resource, and I think every player will start with this universal resource bag. But players can add additional bags that are specific to the type of resource they want to gather, such as this herbalism basket and this mining bag. We see that the herbalism basket allows for 30 additional stacks of herbalism resources and provides additional gathering speed, while the mining bag offers an additional stack size of 40 for mining specific resources. If you were to place a resource in the incorrect bag, first of all, it may not fit, and second, it would not benefit from additional stacking. So the Artisan Gear and Spatial Inventory resource bags make going out into the world to gather a very intentional decision, and you want to bring the correct equipment for the job. I want to point out that these resource bags are specific to gatherable resources. Here we can see processed mining resources. Those zinc and copper fragments within that mining bag do not benefit from increased stack sizes. One thing to note is that this spatial inventory is for resource bags only. The normal backpack inventory for equipment and potions will not operate in this fashion. Another reason that Ashes of Creation is utilizing the spatial inventory system is that it should mitigate the negative effect players can have on the health of the land. Ashes of Creation's land management system reacts to players by limiting over-gathered resources by causing the land to go barren. Though not great in terms of resource collecting, negatively impacting the land this way could actually benefit certain players in times of war. For example, a node could send out players to gather resources from an opposing node's land to intentionally reduce their available resources in a form of economic warfare. The land management system will also respond to other things, such as world bosses that bring along harsh weather conditions, where these weather changes negatively impact crop growth, and players could also impact the land themselves in a positive way by practicing sustainable farming methods through crop rotation on their freeholds. Work order systems are intended to be present in Ashes of Creation. A work order system is kind of like an auction house, but it is specific to crafted items. Players that choose to utilize a work order would need to interact with an auction house-like interface and put up a request for someone to craft a specific item. These players would need to provide all materials required for that item and pay a fee to that crafter. The crafters would then be able to interact with the same system to see what players are requesting and craft those items for those players. From my understanding, this system would make becoming a grandmaster in any crafting profession very lucrative. In my opinion, the most impactful system for the Gathering Artisan class is surveying. Surveying will help gatherers track and identify higher tier resources or specific resources. We have not seen the surveying system in practice yet, but based off what we know so far, it seems like players will be able to place a pylon somewhere in the world, and this pylon will send out a ping to identify all different types of resources, which include static node resources, seasonal resources, hidden resources, and rare resources. I assume that players will need to set the pylon to track a certain profession's type of resource, like lumberjacking gatherables or mining gatherables, and then they will receive markers on their map within the pylon's radius for those specific resources. The surveying system will also have a skill tree just like any profession, where players can spec into it and receive additional pylons or increase their pylon ping radius. I absolutely love this idea because I was a big gatherer in New World. Nothing was more frustrating than running a rare resource loop that took 15 to 20 minutes to find out that all the resource nodes were already depleted. My time investment was rarely rewarded, but within Ashes of Creation, rare resource nodes are randomized and they are not static. So randomized nodes combined with the surveying system will actually reward you for your time going out into the world and exploring. There will not be a resource map that players can find online that show exactly where rare resources will be, allowing them to be camped off respawn. Also, with the limit that Ashes places on the number of professions that can be specialized in, the amount of players competing for the same high-level resources will be significantly cut down. This concludes my general overview of the artisanship system. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe so you can get notified when I release my upcoming videos about each of the 3 artisan classes more in depth. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.